Hello, my name is Tatiana Zakharova, and by day I'm a PhD student and a designer, also by day, with Canadian playground company Earthscape. We are local to the KW region with our design offices here in the photo, our engineering and production located just about 20 minutes from here in Wallenstein, Ontario. I'm pleased for the opportunity to speak to you today because accessibility and inclusivity truly are topics that we think about when designing every single project. And although we don't have all the answers, we do have some ideas that we'd love to share. Now, first, I want to talk about the concept that some of you may have heard about called universal design. Now, sometimes it's sort of defined to include everyone. Sometimes it just sort of speaks about widest possible audience. And I think universal design is a lovely phrase, but I also think it's an impossible concept. And the problem with its implementation is that it's reductionist. It takes this really big, messy idea of inclusivity, and then it tries to portion it out into these small bits, like simple to use, intuitive, or requiring low physical effort. But our abilities and our desires are differently situated in our very different realities. And so I cannot believe in having one universal positivist term that can encompass everything and one physical design solution that can fit everybody. Now, this is not a statement of defeat. Instead, I think the entire process of good design is a process on working on inclusion. Inclusion is a living concept that we contribute to and we're entangled with every day, and design has a very similar iterative quality. Now, for us, design, of course, always starts with meeting accessibility standards because that's the law. But then for every project, and this is the privilege that we have as custom playground designers, we get to consider different ways that kids play. And I just want to focus on two short stories from our practice. Now, theories of gender tell us that there are going to be differences between genders. And research shows that girls, for example, play different from boys. They tend to be less physically active, and they tend to prefer different activities, sitting, climbing, imaginative, and creative play. So we ask ourselves, how can we create these different opportunities? One example of this is a playground at Riverside Park in Guelph that is on the photo right now. And I personally had come to this playground to observe play in action, to make sure that spaces that we design actually do what we design them to do. And I saw here spaces for observing, like there is a child observing on top of the fish sculpture. I saw there enclosed spaces, like inside the sculpture, where really fantastical, creative, imaginative play can take place. I witnessed opportunities for climbing, easy and very challenging climbing, like on top of the water strider piece. Now, with this water strider, I want to pick on one of those concepts of low physical effort that's often mentioned in the principles of universal design. Now, we cannot design with just that idea in mind, because then we would not be able to, for example, get older kids or kids who are looking for a challenge to come out and play outside. And so play, we think, needs to have that full range of effort requirements from low to high. Now, when I was at Riverside Park and looking at this water strider in particular, I saw teenagers climbing on it and being thrilled and maintaining a 3-point contact while totally pretending that they were not scared. And that was so, so wonderful to see. Now, one inclusivity tool that Earthscape uses in our work is simply variety. And of course, this is not our invention. Research from Sweden, for example, that was recently done showed that diverse play spaces can facilitate various ways of processing gender identity. We see that playscapes, which have variety of access and egress options, for example, not just ramps, which have low and high challenges, which have opportunities for different types of play, attract, naturally, I suppose, a wide variety of children. Now, this photo is from a playground that we designed and built at a children's hospital in Hamilton, Ontario. It includes, for example, several play huts shown in the photo. And you don't see these play huts on playgrounds very much. But, for example, children with autism spectrum disorders can use these to self-regulate during play when they perhaps need a moment to themselves. It is the variety, the combination of open, semi-open, and closed spaces that creates a more inclusive space. Now, this playground may be said not to be inclusive enough, and it's a fair criticism. It doesn't have ramps, it doesn't have movable equipment that kids with limited mobility really enjoy. And this is where variety meets reality. Playgrounds are designed on set budgets, and they're also subject to very specific restrictions, which tell us just how much equipment we can put on a certain amount of space. But one thing I'm happy to report to you tonight that we have seen in our practice and across all playground designers and manufacturers a definite interest in an attention paid to inclusivity. And not just mobility inclusivity, but focusing on other senses, sight, hearing, touch, and motion. Now, behind me is a park in Oklahoma City that we did. And now, as designers, we know so much more than we did before. We can talk and think about creating opportunities for interaction and interdependence between peers of different abilities. Now, ensuring that places are flexible is also paramount to that. A log jam like this can be used for kinetic play, so kids, go under, over, and all around the logs. But they can also be spaces where kids can have conversations in the environments that are exclusive to them. Now, at the start of my presentation, I mentioned this interrelationship between design and inclusivity. And I want to leave you with a quote that I just very serendipitously ran into a book by Canadian Alexis Shotwell just the other day, and the quote is attributed to Murray theorist and artist Lila Watson. "If you have come to help me, then you're wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. Let us work together on the magic of play." Thank you.